just to kind of give you guys a call to action for a couple things that I'm passionate about. I'm over at the philosophy track, but I wanted to share with you guys something that I think is directly applicable to you guys in the operational track. Specifically, well, over at the philosophy track, one of the things that we're trying to do is to work together in these small groups to really push the field forward. This is one of those areas where I think you guys can really contribute in meaningful ways that help you guys, right? So one of the way I characterize this is I think a lot of the sessions that we've had previously here talk about sharing information, sharing indicators, and all that kind of stuff. I'm actually proposing that we stop doing that, okay? And instead, do it a different way. So I think in frameworks and ways and models, so I'm going to share with you a couple different models to explain why we're proposing what we're trying to do. So the first model that I want to share with you is what what is called the DIKW pyramid. DIKW, data, information, knowledge, wisdom. Data, information, knowledge, wisdom. The other pyramid I want to share with you is Dave Bianco's pyramid of pain. You guys should be familiar with that. Lists all these different indicators that we care about. You map those indicators to the DIKW pyramid. What do you end up with? You end up with mostly data and information. Okay? What do we really care about? We care about how you got that data and information. I really don't care as much about the what you found as much as how you found it. All right? And fundamentally, if we want to try to advance our field, I would want you guys to be able to move towards the how we discovered these indicators and less about the specific indicators that you discovered. There's another framework that we use, and it's what we call the decoupled security stack. And the decoupled security stack, it's very similar to the OODA loop. If you've ever heard of that, I'm sure many of you guys have. But the basic premise is that we break up our security stack into 4 major components: sensing, sense-making, decision-making, acting. Sensing, sense-making, decision-making, acting. So we map, again, the DIKW pyramid to the security stack, and what we end up with is that sensors, obviously, data and information. Analytics is the knowledge, okay, how. Decisions is a mix of the knowledge and the wisdom. And then the action that you take is back to basically just information, okay? So what do we do today now? When we look at it from the security stack, what we do today is basically we take our sensors and analytics. We don't really share those, okay? What we actually share are the outcomes of our decisions and actions. And if you, as a receiving organization, take action on that information, you take it at your own, at your own risk. Basically, someone's going to say, "Hey, something bad happened with me when I visited Facebook. You should block Facebook too." All right, shoot yourself in the foot. We learned that lesson. We said, you know what? We're not going to do that again. Instead, what we do is we basically treat it as sensor information. Okay. The problem is it's very noisy, right? Sure, there's some bit of goodness in there, but the vast, vast, vast majority of it's very noisy. What do we want to do instead? What we want to do instead is move to a state where, to some degree, we do want to actually share some sensor information, but not everything. Okay, passive DNS is a great example of what the sensor information that we should be sharing collectively. Kudos to Paul if he's around. What we really also want to share is analytics. We want to share the how. Okay, and then when we talk about sharing decisions and actions, I blocked something. Okay, that gives me more context for maybe based on what I see in my environment, based on the analytics that I'm running. Okay, that you shared with me, I might have better context as to my own decisions I need to make. All right. So now the sharing of analytics is what I'm trying to propose that we do. All right. You may think, well, how do we do that? Well, actually, let me give you an example also. When I think about the sharing of analytics versus the sharing of what we do in a lot of these conferences, it's sort of like this. It's like watching your grandma when she's teaching you how to cook. All right. So why don't you guys come up here and basically say, here's how I found badness. All right. You take a little bit of this, take a little bit of that, stir it up, taste it a little bit, and voila, you found fancy bear, whatever it is. Okay. But that's really not very repeatable. what we want is a Betty Crocker version of that, or at least just written down so that when someone says a little bit of this, you can say, well, can you kind of be more specific in terms of what is that little bit of this? All right. Well, fortunately, there are a couple of folks who are doing this. So Dave Bianco, he has threathunting.net, and he has a bunch of things in terms of, look, if you have these ingredients, here are some really cool things you could do with those ingredients. And if you want to try to do certain goals, if you want to try to make some of these meals, here's different ways that you can make those meals using these ingredients. And then he has somewhat of a Betty Crocker version here, right? Saying, here's how to find a web shell. You take a little bit of this and take a little bit of that. But hey, at least it's written down, okay? Which is cool. The next stage, though, is, if you're not familiar with MITRE's Cyber Analytic Repository, this is getting closer to that recipe, okay, that Betty Crocker recipe. On the right, you have the attack framework. That is the attacker TTP, okay? This is the attacker TTP. This is the analyst TTP in the English language. Here's the analyst TTP written down as a recipe, okay? Is this recipe format the right one? Maybe, maybe not. But hey, it's a start, all right? And we're trying to go from grandma's recipe to, or grandma's description of a meal or a dish to the actual recipe here, all right? So how do we want to put this all together? I'm going to give you a quick overview of how we would look at this if we were to make this a community community-driven sort of thing. So you have, again, one of you guys come up and say, hey, I found this awesome way to find intrusions. Let me tell you about it. Okay, I'm now going to turn it into a very explicit way that you can go and run it yourself now. Okay, here's an analytic method. That analytic method I'm going to express in some sort of tooling that is specific to me. If you happen to have that same tooling, awesome, then you're ready to roll. And of course, the same tooling and same basic data structures, then you're good to go. Within my own organization, I'll run that. I'll come up with my own set of indicators. I do actually call them byproducts, and the byproducts here, in the context of recipes, the byproduct is not the meal. It's the broken eggshells, okay? It's the residue butter, all right? It's the stuff that you throw away. But we don't throw it away. We say, hey, you guys want some of my residue or my byproducts? And I would even go as far as calling them waste products. Would you want my waste products? Probably not. But hey, a lot of other communities do, so we share those, okay? And we push them. This is what we do today, all right? But as we can all tell, it's suboptimal. What we want to do instead is stick all that into a repository, an analytic repository, and then share that with a community. Within the context of the community, what we want to share is the method itself, the recipe. How good is it? Okay, tell me your false positives, tell me your false negatives. False positives and your true positives, I mean. Tell me how expensive it was for you, okay? How do you measure the cost? How do you measure toxicity? How do you, if I'm gonna give you a recipe, you wanna know, and if you have a gluten allergy, you wanna know, hey, is there gluten in here, okay? Or if you have a peanut allergy, I don't wanna eat your pad thai, thank you very much. So how do we capture that toxicity within our respective environments? I have many more nodes than you guys might have. So am I looking at an n squared computation time or n log n, all right? Some basic ways for us to be able to calculate cost. The fourth thing we want to capture, this is something that's more specific to my industry, but I want to know, is there something systemic going on? With sufficient data points, I'll see perhaps maybe some sign that somebody is running a campaign against not just me, but a bunch of other things. The fifth one is, what's special about you if you found evidence that someone was trying, but they failed? Is there something interesting about how you designed your system that maybe we should all learn from? That's what we want to be able to capture. But just to start off with, the challenge for you guys, the ask that I would make for you guys, start capturing your analytic methods in a way that we can reuse, okay? And then tell us how good was it, and tell us how costly it was, all right? Then we offer it to everyone else, they consume it. We need to figure out a way to take, there are a couple problems that we have. One is, how do you take this expression that is unique to us and genericize it so that when it's received by somebody else, they can then take that and then convert it into their respective tooling, okay? that's a problem that we're going to all face, but we do that already. We already do this, okay? We just don't have a way that we can easily share it with each other. We take our recipe, we take our method for turning wheat into flour and think that it's special to us. Guess what? We all have wheat, and we all have a need to turn it into flour, okay? They run it. They get their own set of indicators. They share it. Most of it doesn't match. Most of it's waste. But the method itself is useful. What we want to do is then share that and improve analytic method, tell us how good it was, how costly it was, all the rest of that stuff. Make sense? Okay, so again, the call to action here for you guys is I'm happy that you guys are sharing grandma's version of your really great meal, all right? But we got to move it further. Art into science is about taking this expression and turning it into something that, well, you already do this, by the way. You already do this within your shop, okay? What's the format for this? How do we capture some of these other data points that we need? All right? And as I mentioned, there's examples already. There's already examples with Bianca's work. There's examples that MITRE has. They can be starting points, but we need to go further than that. The call to action here, we really need your help and your participation to basically say, what are the right formats that we need to be able to express this language? What can we agree upon? What's going to work? What kind of tooling do you have that we can perhaps share that conversion routines? Okay. So if you guys want to help, I'm going to disappear. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle and Moon back there, who are very instrumental in making this work for us. This is not theoretical. This is actually, we're trying to make this work, but we need help. And you guys are the people you guys are the cooks, all right? And what we want is more cooks. We actually want more cooks in the kitchen, believe it or not, here. We want more cooks in the kitchen because we want to be able to make this work for all of us. So because of the nature of this silly arrangement that we have, this community that we have up here is unfortunately a little bit of a restricted one, but the people who are building this have no desire whatsoever to make the construct of this a selective community, right? So the content itself, there's no reason why the content can't be stood up by somebody else. In fact, in some ways, we kind of are already doing that. We just aren't telling certain people in golf shirts. But the point is that we want to make this a community that is widely available. And to some degree, as I mentioned already, you go to car.mitre.org, car.mitre.org. It's already there, okay? Or go to Bianca's website, and it's already there. So what we want to do is just formalize it and accelerate that work. Okay, any questions? Thank you very much. That was the Turbo Talk.